Congratulations! You are tuned into Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dov Baron, is the founder of FullMontyLeadership.com. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dov Baron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Now, over to Dov Baron.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Tips, part of the Full Monty interview series. I'm your host, Dov Baron, founder of Full Monty Leadership, and I'm here to assist you tapping into your deep greatness so that you can reach that next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, your life, and your leadership impact. Today, we're going to be taking an insider look at running your business like clockwork. Is that real or is that a fantasy? Remember, you can chat about this episode of the show or any other past episodes on our Facebook page. Just simply go to Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty podcast on Facebook, and there you can chat about the show. If you're a new listener, new viewer, thank you for joining us. Strap yourself in. We're about to go full Monty. Remember, you can now find us on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you tap into your podcast. We need your help in staying relevant, so please get yourself over to iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. Please do that. And when you do, let us know in that Facebook group page, and maybe we'll give you a shout out right here live on the show. If you want to know also, you can tune into us through terrestrial radio stations across the United States every Monday and Thursday. We go out on radio stations from Las Vegas to Philadelphia to Georgia to Florida to Colorado. We are across the United States. You can also find us on Roku TV, where there is over 100,000 subscribers. And if you're a regular listener, we want to give you a big thank you. Thank you for making us the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500 listeners, with a potential reach of 2.5 to 4 million listeners for every single show. We're honored and grateful to be cited by Inc. as the #1 podcast to make you a better leader. And by the way, you can also listen to us on Google Home and Alexa. Simply say, play Dov Baron podcast. Again, thank you for sharing the show with everyone you know. We sincerely appreciate it. All right, let's strip it down and dive right in. As a leader, whether you are a CEO, someone in the C-suite, a sales leader, an entrepreneur leader, or a leader in any capacity whatsoever, there tends to be two kinds of leaders in business: the strategic, systemized leader, and then the visionary, entrepreneurial leader. But is it possible to create a healthy hybrid that allows you to grow your business, grow your ideas, and do so while being more efficient and more profitable? Well, stay tuned because you are about to find out. Our guest today on this episode is Mike Michalowicz. Mike Michalowicz is the author of Profit First, Surge, The Pumpkin Plan, and his newest release is called Clockwork. By his 35th birthday, Mike had founded and sold 2 companies, one to private equity, another to a Fortune 500. Today, he is running his 3rd multi-million-dollar venture, Profit First Professionals. Mike is a former business columnist, small business columnist for the Wall Street Journal, and former business makeover specialist from MSNBC. Over the years, Mike has traveled the globe speaking with thousands of entrepreneurs, and today I'm going to get him to reveal the very best of what he learned and share it with you. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and help me welcome Mike Michalowicz.
Hey! I'm here. I love the energy, Dov. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
You're welcome. Hey, it's good to have you here. I was actually really looking forward to this. As you know, of course, and others don't yet, or maybe don't yet, I was a guest on your show, and I had such a great time. It's such a fun show, and I love the energy of what you do and how you bring your energy to what it is you do, because a lot of what you do sounds a bit like accounting. You know what I mean? It sounds a bit dry and boring, and you don't bring that to it, and you make it juicy, you make it spicy, and you make it a fun thing to do, but actually making businesses more efficient. Now, I said in the intro that by 35, you'd founded 2 companies. One was sold to private equity, the other Fortune 500, and that's glorious. But that's not where the story ends. You became an angel investor.
Right.
Then what happened?
Yeah. Well, one of the worst angel investors of all time.
So it's more of a demonic investor?
Yeah. More of an
Yourself?
angel of death, quite frankly. It was interesting. You know, after selling 2 companies, it is glorious. And anyone that aspires to sell a company, I hope it happens to them. When that check comes across the table, it is, first of all, to achieve that kind of wealth, you know, in a snap of the fingers is unbelievable. To have your concepts affirmed that it's valuable for someone to buy is massive.
Mm-hmm.
But it also, my mindset transitioned. I thought I was so smart, and arrogance I never knew I had kicked in. This ego of,
Right.
wow, I'm God's gift to entrepreneurship. And I said, well, clearly I'm just going to keep building businesses left and right and selling them, and I'm going to be a billionaire. And I became an angel investor. I started 10 companies with my own funds.
10,
yeah. All within about 6 weeks. And
6 weeks?
yeah. Just, oh, that's a good idea. Let's do this.
Is your middle name Meshuggah?
No, that's funny. It is. Well, you see the way I speak. I'm clearly a Meshuggah. It should be. I blew it. Every single business failed because they weren't complementary businesses. The entrepreneurs were not experienced. And the worst part was my arrogance. I said, well, I'm here. I know all the answers to business. All the businesses tanked. I was spending money even when the companies didn't exist anymore to cover past bills.
Wow.
It was a disaster. And I actually ended up between that and just blowing money through my own arrogance of, you know, oh, I have to have expensive cars. I have to have a sabbatical in Hawaii on a private island. I blew the money so fast that it took me 2 years and I eradicated all my wealth. That was the wake-up call.
That is fascinating because there's a whole bunch of things we can dive into there.
Yeah.
But because of my background and where I come from and how I am structured psychologically to think, I have to question this, if this is okay with you. It is kind of somewhat maybe off subject, but maybe actually a very deeper subject for everybody else, which is, what do you think was the belief system that you had prior to the wealth that allowed you to get rid of it and not keep it?
Yeah, I think I did not understand what profit was. That was a huge thing. It actually triggered one of my books, which was Profit First, which, you know, you've been on our show, the Profit First podcast. I thought that profit was an eventuality, and that really all I had to do was play the cash flow game. If I could keep sales going robustly enough, it would just keep on bringing enough cash to cover my spend. But when sales slowed down and there was no profit whatsoever in the business, I instantly felt pain. I was so reactionary. Part of the selling the businesses, which I didn't share until now, is it was a relief to get rid of those businesses because of the financial burden it placed on me.
Sure.
I'd refinanced my house a couple of times just to cover payroll. What I've discovered, Dove, is that as revenue increases, it's really a sense of stress that increases because revenue represents obligation. Every dollar we make, we have an obligation to a client who's giving us that money. So the more revenue we make, the greater our obligation. Therefore, the greater the stress. The anti-stress potion, if you will, is profit. That's what brings the balance. And when you have no profitability and growing revenue, the actual obligation increases, therefore the stress increases. I didn't know that. And then when I became an angel investor, I was so in this mindset of grow, grow, grow. I didn't even consider profit. And I just couldn't keep all the plates spinning and say all collapsed.
Do you think that that's, I mean, of course, that for you was not last week. It was a while ago. But do you think that that's what we're seeing today with, you know, these people who get into what I call the unicorn mindset, you know, that they think they're going to be the entrepreneurial unicorn, that they're going to start something in the garage and within 2 years, they're going to sell it for $1 billion to Google?
Yeah, I think we see that left and right. And and sadly, it's affirmed on the cover of Inc. magazine or Entrepreneur or whatever you read, Fast Company, because you see like, oh, look at Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg is a lucky guy. I'm not discounting his intelligence, his skill. He was in the right place at the right time and applied a skill set. But there is a massive component of luck. And this is true for Bill Gates, for Steve Jobs, for all of us. Luck is a component. Some people will win the lottery. That does not mean investing in the lottery is a good strategy. Banking on the fact that you think your business will explode and be the next Facebook it's probably not true. Statistically, 99.9% of businesses never do it. I'm not saying it can't happen, and I'm not saying you shouldn't aspire to have massive success, but to bank on the fact that you're going to build rapidly and sell out is a bad move. And that's what I did. I was just saying, well, if I just keep growing fast, I never have to worry about money. And that's totally not true. We have to have a fiscal discipline from the get-go.
But I think as particularly in the context of entrepreneurs, that's pretty rare, right?
Yeah, totally, right?
Right, because I mean, as I talked about even at the intro, is that entrepreneurs tend to be visionaries. They tend to be, way out there. I'm certainly an entrepreneur, have been all my life, but I'm also an artist. I'm a high creative. And so I'm looking at creating. I'm always looking at creating. I'm always looking at the, and I'm not the strategic, database full of a spreadsheet kind of guy. But I also do know that I need that person.
Yes. Yeah. We need that balance. And I think that's so important to acknowledge. I think many entrepreneurs, myself especially, struggled with what I call the I can syndrome. Mm-hmm. What that syndrome is that I can do everything for my business at the beginning. In fact, I have to be the guy who does the sales, delivers the services, also does the administrative work, does the bookkeeping and the accounting. When you start out and it's just you.
Well, you have to do.
You have to do it. And then we have this belief that I can do all this. You can do something and doing it effectively are totally different things. I can do accounting really, really poorly. I didn't realize how poorly I did at it. But because I believed that I can do it, I kept doing it. And so I didn't understand the finances. I too am more of a visionary. Like I can see where we want to take it and get super enthusiastic about it. I can carry our business forward on just excitement alone, only for a period of time before the reality of numbers set in.
Yeah.
And I need to surround myself with other people that can address that stuff, or put systems in place that keep me away from my own bad behaviors, that channel me.
Yeah. One of the things I've said is to the business people that I've helped is just because you can doesn't mean you should.
That's yes. Very succinct and very appropriate.
It doesn't mean you should. There's all kinds of things I can do, but I sure as hell know I shouldn't do many of them.
I'm into that.
And it's actually a bit of a disaster. So when you lost the money, when all the 10 businesses, was that a turning point in your life, in your leadership, in your business philosophy, or was it something else?
The answer is yes and no. In the moment, it wasn't. In retrospect, it was a massive change. So I lost all my money. I had to go home to my family to finally admit this. I had not admitted to myself. There's a strange phenomenon that happened as I saw my money dwindling, and literally my bank, I'd log in actually by the minute. Certain days I'd log in, the deposit come. I actually saw the money depleting. So logically, I knew it was going away, but emotionally, I didn't accept it. I thought that one big client would swoop in and the big investor would buy me out again.
Right. Of course. That's your magic bullet, right?
That's the magic bullet. And so my family, when my wife asked me how are things going, I'm like, we're good. We're fine. She knew something was wrong, but I couldn't even admit to myself. I had to come home to tell my family we were done and we were about to lose our house. We actually lost our house. We lost our possessions, our cars. I never filed bankruptcy. I had to liquidate just to save ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I also went into depression at that time for 2 years. Became a drinker. Like listen, like it's a Friday night. I'll throw back a beer, but like that's about it.
Sure.
This time I became drinking to deaden that stress.
Yeah.
I became an insomniac and I just removed myself from any social scene. I was just so ashamed of who I was.
Mm-hmm.
But that did become a turning point. I went through that for years, but kept on revisiting what do I need to fix in myself? It became very introspective.
Right.
I now realize that turning point, that struggle of mine was actually the best thing that could have ever happened to me. Because it tore out my ego. I realized, oh my God, I am not better than a single human being on this planet. Shame on me for ever believing that. I don't think I'm worse than anyone. I think we're all on a different plane. We're all the same, just on a different part of the circle of life.
Sure.
But that realization kind of sunk in. And then I asked myself, what can I contribute? How can I be of service to others, but also to myself? And that's where I came across authorship as really an outlet for me to address my own challenges in business and life, and hopefully serve others in the process.
So let's just step back a fraction here, which was into the depression, because I mean, I was speaking with a client yesterday, and one of the things I was talking about is if of course, all of us have a level of fear of failure, some level of it. And I said, I named 3 people that you admire in business, and the person named them. And I said, okay, now tell me any one of those 3 that did not have an epic fail, not a failure, epic failure.
Yeah.
And of course, everyone who's had epic success has had epic failure.
Yeah.
And the reason that people don't massively succeed is because they don't have epic failure. Or they have an epic failure and they never get back up.
Yeah.
But they have an epic failure, then they have epic learning, and then they move forward. Obviously, this was an epic failure for you, having to go home and admit and say all these things. And that spiraled you into a depression. But do you have a sense of what pulled you out? Do you have a sense of?
I do, because I'll never forget the person who said it. His name was Joe Spano. I'll never forget the impact it had on me. I was sitting one day with this group of guys that are friends of mine, and just they're letting me kind of lament about my challenges. I at this point now had a $50,000 of credit card debt. On the radio that morning, as I was driving to meet with these guys, I remember the commercial came on and said the average American has, I think it was $7,000 of debt. And I felt, oh my God, I've never strived so much to be an average American, right?
I need to upgrade to average.
I want to upgrade to average.
Right.
And so I met with these guys, and my friend Joe pulled me aside and said, I have a suggestion for you. He's like, I really encourage you to start a journal. And I said, that's kind of weird, because what I thought a journal was you look at the day and you pick out, like, what are you grateful for in the day? What have you had successes at? And you try to build momentum. And I said, I just don't feel up to that. And he goes, no. I want you not to write your successes or failures or anything. He goes, I simply want you to write whatever you're feeling in your mind, whatever the thought is in the moment, those exact words, start writing them down.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no formula except for vacating my mind. I still have this journal. Actually, I saw it yesterday. I was sitting on my shelf. I wrote in that for 2 years, any thought, and they were nasty thoughts, angry thoughts, so angry at myself, so angry at God. I mean, just why would I ever be in this position? And just hatefulness, realizations came out of it, moments of joy and happiness, saying, wow, and what happened, Dove, is that by journaling, I found that just by speaking to a book, not anyone else, just speaking to a book, I had a momentary relief, maybe for like 2 minutes after writing, maybe an hour, but I was able to get clear again to kind of get back on track. I kept on journaling for years and vacated all this stuff. I still have the journal. I haven't journaled, I think, in about 6 months, but some days I just go back there and I start scrawling thoughts out. That was a salvation for me. It actually got me out of depression.
That's so interesting. And I fully encourage our viewers, our listeners to journal. I've journaled for years. I've got shelves full of them. And what I will tell you is there's a part of me that wants somebody to read them when I die. And there's a part of me that wants somebody to burn them when I die.
Yeah.
Because, I've described journaling this way is that I was dating my wife, I think we were like 3-4 months in. And I said, I wrote about you in my journal today. And she goes, can I read it? And I go, no. And she goes, why? I go, it's in my journal. And she goes, oh. And I said, if I gave you a bucket in which I just vomited and told you there was a couple of diamonds in there, would you want to dig around? She's like, that's gross. That's disgusting. I go, that's what a journal is. A journal is where you go to vomit emotionally.
Yes.
And what happens is every now and then you bring up a couple of jewels and it's magnificent. But most of the time you're just vomiting your emotional mess into that. But in that moment, you can see what it is that you couldn't see until you vomited out onto the journal paper. And I so encourage people to journal. And yes, journal about your gratitudes and journal about your successes and all those kinds of things. But be willing to have an emotional vomit bucket in your journal, which just allows you to just You know, and as you said, and I think it's important, Mike, and I think most people, I've had lots of conversations with people who journal nice stuff, and I go, you know, the first rule is it has to be uncensored. So you have to, if you've got 54 expletives in a row, that's cool.
Yeah, we're there. We're there.
Whatever you need to do.
I never appreciated that because, you know, I think when I go on social media or something like that, it seems like a form of journaling. People just spew stuff, but it's consistently a showmanship. Like, oh my God, my life is perfect. Look at this great food on me on vacation. And so I thought journaling was the way I was going to build my confidence, was through all these wonderful things. I love that you said it's verbal vomit. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It gets the poison out that you ingested, you know?
Exactly. Get the poison out. That's exactly what it is. So let's go to, I mean, I want to talk a lot about Clockwork, but I want to just touch on this because I think it's important. Let's talk about your profit first formula, because I know you've built an entire business around this. We met through two people, but one of the people we met through is somebody who's in your mastermind for your profit first formula. Yeah. He talked about how it's transformed his business. He loves it. But, you know, I think in the grand sort of 10,000 foot view of it, most people in business think that they are doing the profit first formula. They think that, oh yeah, I'm in this to make profit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Walk us a little bit through the misconceptions of what people are doing and how to step into real profit first.
I believe that all entrepreneurs believe that profit is important, but I also believe all entrepreneurs, or most entrepreneurs, believe profit is important someday. There's no immediacy. They believe that profit will be an event or an eventuality. And that's what I believe.
Think that's been perpetrated by things like Amazon, which didn't show profit.
Oh, sure.
Right.
I mean, it's documented everywhere. In fact, it's the foundational argument in accounting. We are told that profit comes last. The formula is, you know, you pay for sales, subtract your expenses, and whatever's left over, congratulations, that's your profit.
Right.
What I discovered is it's human nature. When we're told something comes last, or when we believe something comes last, it's the perpetual manana syndrome.
Right.
Like, you know, profit. And so literally, I remember in my own business, I would look at the income statement at the end of the year that my accountant had reviewed and prepared and see if there was profit. And if there was, it was a negligible profit. And if there was even a number that was positive in there, it was an accounting profit. There was no cash. It had been spent. Not my definition of profit. And so then I was like, maybe next year. I get so frustrated, but say maybe next year. I'd literally delay the consideration for profit for 365 consecutive days.
Right.
So what I argue in Profit First is that profit must be a habit. Every transaction, every moment in our business, we must drive profit. Profit is a succession of small wins that accumulate to a massive win. It's not that one moment. And so what I did in Profit First, I flipped the formula. What I say is sales minus profit equals expenses. And the realization is on a behavioral level, when something comes first, we prioritize it. Like if I had a health scare, I would say my health now comes first. I wouldn't say my health now comes last. When profit's taken first, the entire business shifts. So what happens is you have a sale in your business, you take a predetermined percentage, say it's 10%, 20%, whatever you determine I want my business to be at profitably, you pull that out, you run your business off the remainder. And the thing is, we're simply reverse engineering profitability. If you want to achieve 20% profit, this is the money that you have available to run your business. It's right there in front of you. Mm. And business owners that do this, and we now calculate, this is an estimate, it's over 75,000 businesses. We think we're approaching 100,000 businesses that are now doing profit first. What we find consistently, it's businesses that take their profit first will have a mind shift. There will be this confidence saying, oh my gosh, I now have a little bucket of profit piled up. I feel good. Then they'll look at how much money is left for expenses and they'll say, oh, geez, I can't run my business off this. And it'll challenge their thinking. Then they'll say, well, I have to run my business off this because I want this profit. And they start rethinking their business. Mm. If an entrepreneur is willing to stick with the profit first system, typically for 3 months, it then becomes entrenched in them. They say, okay, this is my new me. We adjust to this new standard. That's how profit first works.
You know, and I get it. I'm thinking at an entrepreneurial level here, exactly in line with what you just said. And that is, that most businesses, entrepreneurial businesses, are actually always behind.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So there's always a financial catch up, if you will.
Yeah.
So help us understand how you make that flip, because if I'm going, well, I'm running business, I'm just making up silly numbers so people can grasp it. But if I'm running business at, I'm bringing in $10,000 a month, but we're running at $12,000 a month just to keep up.
Yeah.
You know, and of course, some months we have a 15, and that helps us to pull back that gap.
Right.
It's very difficult for that mindset to go, hold on a second, I'm going to pull the profit first. I can't, there's nowhere to pull it from because we're already at loss.
Yeah. So the first realization is, if your business can't pay its bills, it can't afford those bills. So many businesses run their expenses beyond what the business can truly support. So they have to find the money out somewhere. So they borrow the money, credit card debt, personal loans. That is a flawed business. Like, a business should not be designed to spend more than it makes. Now, it again is affirmed by these unicorns. You see Google or Facebook or Twitter, who still has yet to be profitable after all these years, who are getting funding. They're taking on more and more effectively loans.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, if your business can't pay its bills, it can't afford its bills. The second thing is that starting profit first, I think we need to step into it. So a business has never been profitable. I say to them, let's start with 1% of the money allocation. Because I think it's hard to argue that if your business takes in, say, $1,000 of deposits today, if you take $10 away and hide it, if you can run your business off $1,000, you can run your business off $990. It's such an inconsequential amount, but the behavioral shift is significant. You start seeing profit accumulate. Then many entrepreneurs will challenge themselves and say, well, what if I did actually 2% or 3%?
Right.
What I've discovered is businesses that step into it continually increase it, and then they find that a lot of the money they're spending is wasted money. You know, I ran those Facebook ads and I spent $20,000 in Facebook ads because everyone says that's where you make money nowadays, and it didn't work. Well, there wasn't really much thought put into it. When you have less money, you are forced to become innovative with it. You know, necessity is the mother of invention. When there's less money available, we find ways to get results from our business with less cash. And that's the goal of an effective business. The last thing I want to share is there's an adage that goes around that says it takes money to make money. And I want to call bullshit on that. I think it's a total freaking lie. Whoever is the jerk who said that, you're a real a-hole, pal, because everyone believes this.
Yeah, of course.
It doesn't take money to make money. It takes innovative thinking. It takes out of the box thinking. It takes frugality. It takes drive, efficiency. It takes all these other elements. The lazy way is to throw money at something. I think the hard way is to outthink the industry, to try something new, to challenge the industry norms. I think that's where real money is made. And at the root of it is actually, if you take the money out first and hide it from yourself, that's where the opportunity is, because that will force you to think innovatively.
That's, you know, I think it's maybe dangerously simple.
Yeah.
What I mean by the dangerously simple is because when something is, you know, as Edgar Casey said in a quote years ago, it's simple, not easy.
Yes.
Right. Because like getting dangerously simple means, can you get your head around this?
Yeah.
That you know, that when somebody gives you $100, you're going to take $10 and put it in a jar, you know, or $5 or $2 or $1 or whatever it is, but you're going to take something out and put it in that jar and not touch it. You know, that is, you know, that's something we taught our eldest son to do. And, you know, and he's in his second property in his early 30s, you know, in Vancouver, which is this insane place for real estate. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right? But it was that rule. And I had said to him, I wish to hell somebody had taught me that in my 20s. Yeah. You know, or even in my late teens. So
you know, the problem with simple,
dangerously simple.
It's dangerous. Yeah. And the problem with dangerously simple is it brings about skepticism too. People say that can't work. So people thrust complexity into simple solutions, therefore proving it not to work. And they say, see, even when I try to make it work for me by adding complexity, it doesn't work. So clearly this is a failure. And that's the key. We cannot add complexity to it. We have to do it at the simple level, stick with it. It will not be easy, but you also have to convince yourself by sticking with it. You know?
But I think that's right there, you talked about early on in our interview here, you talked about your ego.
Yeah.
And of course, that's big specialty for me, the psychology of understanding what drives people. But at an ego level, one of the most important things to us is to be right.
Yes.
And so if I say this is not possible, I will do everything it takes to prove it's not possible, even if it is. And you just said it so well, so eloquently, which is we add complexity to something that is simple. How do you lose weight? Well,
Yeah.
you eat less than you burn. That's
right.
the simplicity of it. Can you complicate that? Enormously. But that's kind of the basis of it. Is there more you can add to it? Can you add complexity to it? Of course you can. Can you overcomplicate it? Absolutely. But provided a body is at a healthy homeostasis, meaning there's not glandular problems or biological problems or those kinds of things, that's the simplicity of it. And what I'm really hearing from you is the simplicity of profit first is take the money out and put it in the profit jar before you do anything else.
Yep.
Before you pay the rent, before you do anything else, you do that.
Literally that simple. It's literally that simple.
Because I think we all heard, I know I heard, was pay yourself first.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's what it is. That's I think one of the best parts is some people say to me, Mike, this is a brand new system. No one's ever done this before. I'm like, whoa. This is a very established system. Yeah. There's books dedicated to this. This is the pay yourself first principle, which is outlined in Think and Grow Rich. It's outlined in The Richest Man in Babylon, right?
Yes.
So it's outlined. I'm simply saying the application also applies to business. Maybe that is the new part.
Right.
But it's an established principle that we all know works. So this is not a test or a petri dish. This is a theory that just works.
Just works, right. Now, your latest book is titled Clockwork.
Yes.
Talk to us about designing a business that runs itself. Because now we talked about, grabbing the profit out, but most people, certainly entrepreneurs, are, I was saying to somebody yesterday that when I was at school, and I think I was 11, and my teacher said, by the time you're 50 years old, your meals will be tablets, and you'll only go to work because you want to, because robots will do the work. Well, right. Robots are doing the work, and I've got more hours going in than I ever had. So talk to us about designing a business that runs itself, because I could do it a spot of that myself.
Yeah. And so could I. That's in part why I wrote it, is all the books I've written are to solve challenges that I too am facing and I'm trying to apply to myself. So I actually started the research for this book 6 years ago is when it first started. I actually wrote a full manuscript for the book, and I completed it 3 years ago and threw it out the window because it didn't pass the mustard of tests with other companies too. I feel that there is the application of Maslow's hierarchy of needs for human needs also applies to business, but in its own flavor. Mm-hmm. Just as Maslow 101, it's, foundationally says our basic need is physiological needs, food, water,
air, water, shelter.
Yeah. Shelter. And then we can keep going up. Then it's like belonging to community, love, self-actualization. In business, I think there's a foundational need. And what Maslow argues, by the way, if the foundational need isn't being met, everything else becomes irrelevant. We go to the bottom of the base of the pyramid. Once that's satisfied, we start bumping up again. But if anything is compromised, we revert to the lowest level for survivability before we build up. Yep. Well, businesses have the same function, I believe. The foundational need for every business, I believe, is sales. There must be an inbound source of income. We must make sales. That's the oxygen for a business. The next level up, I believe, is profitability. To me, that is the food, the nutrition for a business. That's the food and water. Sadly, many businesses are starving to death. They're not getting the food or water, profit. They believe the solution is sell more, which is actually gasping for air. They try to take in more oxygen to feed a starving body, which will never work. But what they do, they actually try to breathe in more. So many revert to the wrong part of the Maslowian hierarchy to support their business and die as a result. Well, once a business has consistent sales, once business has predictable profitability, then the next level up, I believe, is the capture or the utilization of time. Many business owners are in a trap, particularly small business owners, leaders, where they are working exhaustively to grow the business. And they believe that the harder they work, the business will therefore grow more. It is true in a very small business, especially when it's reliant on you. The harder you work, you do make more, but there's a cap to it. You can only work so much, of course. But now they've become so entrenched in this idea, the I can syndrome we were talking about earlier. They're so entrapped in this idea that they actually try to find ways to become more productive themselves, push themselves more, but never seem to break free. It's obvious, but in execution, it doesn't seem to be so obvious that we need to remove ourselves from the doing phase of work and move to what I call the designing phase, where we're strategically putting the right resources, we're leveraging the right type of people, all in concert to achieve the objectives of the organization. So Clockwork, the subtitle is Design Your Business to Run Itself, is about organizational efficiency, getting all the resources to drive the business forward while simultaneously removing you from being an influencer, a cog in the wheel to pull yourself out. So ultimately, the business is running itself and you are simply giving it strategic direction and vision.
So you're working on, not in.
Yeah, very Michael Gerber-ish. And which is his concept of the E-Myth is to work on the business, not in the business. How Clockwork is different is that it's the very structural approach. I actually, I had dinner with Michael Gerber. We were keynoting the same event in Mexico, Monterrey, Mexico, a few years back. And sat him down. One of my favorite books of all time is E-Myth. And I told him what I was working on. And he's a very eccentric type of guy. So it was fun. And some of his language is flowery, we'll say. So interesting conversation. And one concept that I proposed, I said, when most entrepreneurs look at business, I think they feel it's a parent-child relationship. The business is a child. They're the parent. Their job is to work on the child, to feed and nurture that child until one day the child has its own legs and then returns to the parent, monetarily. And I said, my belief is we're not a parent-child relationship, that we're conjoined twins, that we're actually growing together, that we share critical organs, that we share the same heart and liver and lungs and share the same legs. And as the business goes, so do we. And as we go, so does the business. Therefore, for us to remove ourselves from the business, it's a very surgical process. We need to carefully and surgically separate the hearts and the lungs and remove from each other. If we do this abruptly, and I think that's the challenge many entrepreneurs face, it doesn't work. It kills both sides. So they just stay conjoined. So Clockwork is a very methodical, surgical separation of the entrepreneur from the business so that they are finally able to run independently, yet they will always share the same soul. The organs are separated, the bodies are separated, but the soul will always conjoin.
Yeah, and that's, for us in the work that we do, that's the purpose of the organization.
Yes.
The soulful purpose of it. In Clockwork, you talk about giving away tasks, which is perfectly aligned what you're just talking about, and then defining your queen bee role. Talk to us a little bit about that, because that's important.
So, Dov, as I was studying businesses, and when I set out on this many years back, I went to different companies. I went to a playset manufacturer. I went to a law firm. I'm studying these companies that were all very efficient and scaling quickly, looking for a common thread. And I actually struggled to find it. I found they all had formulas they followed, but couldn't find a commonality that translated to all businesses. So I had to keep going back to the whiteboard again. And it was frustrating. One day, by happenstance, I started to research bees. So what I discovered is that beehives, maybe you've noticed this, one day a bee's flying around your window, the next day there's a whole hive there, very efficient in scaling and their utilization of the organizational energy. So I researched beehives, and I found that in there is the foundational thread that actually some successful companies use. It's a simple 2-rule process. In a beehive, the core function is, the core goal of the hive is simply survivability. And how you drive survivability is by laying eggs. A bee can live 6 to 8 weeks before it expires, so they need to constantly be producing eggs. Every bee knows that. And what they do is, if the queen bee, that's the one that lays eggs, is not producing, every bee goes to facilitate production. Make sure the queen bee is fed. Make sure she's protected. Make sure everything's happening. Only once egg production is protected and going effectively do they revert to their primary job function, which should be collecting nectar, protecting the hive, cooling or heating the hive. Here's the key. the queen bee is not the most important bee. It's the role of laying eggs that's most important. The queen bee happens to serve it. If she's failing to serve her job, she's removed from the hive. She will be left to expire, and they will spawn, as a spawning process, a new queen bee. It's the eggs that matter. Every business has this same core function. There's one function, I argue, in every single company that the entire survivability or thrivability of an organization is hinged on. So, but sadly, most entrepreneurs, myself included, had no clue what it was or is. And therefore, the business is trying to fix and do all these different things all the time. And we get frustrated in the stagnation of the business, and we expire huge amounts of energy. We have to find our QBR. And I'll share very quickly how to find it. Identify what is your brand promise. What are you distinguishing your company as? What are you known for? FedEx, we promise to deliver your package on time. That's their brand promise. Then what we do is we peel back the onion simply one layer and say, what is the function that's delivering on that promise? For FedEx, the one function is logistics. They move those packages quickly. FedEx could say, you know what, we're going to focus on customer service now. Let's not worry about logistics. Beautiful, friendly people on the phone, but the business would suffer if packages aren't being delivered on time.
Sure.
That's the core function. They must protect it and serve it. Everyone must know the criticality of that, and they must elevate it. In our businesses, every business, what is the thing you're known for? Peel back the onion one layer and determine what's the one primary function that is supporting that differentiator. Prioritize that. Protect that. That's your queen bee role.
I'm trying to, because I really want our viewers, our listeners to get this.
Yeah.
So would it be okay if we use me?
Yeah, let's do it.
Right. So I would look at what first?
First, we want to know is what is your brand promise? What's the big differentiator? What are you known for your customer?
Purpose-driven leadership.
Purpose-driven leadership. Okay.
Helping leaders find their purpose, helping companies find their purpose, and build a culture around purpose.
Okay. So you help leaders find their purpose. Now we peel the onion back 1 degree. I know you do many things, Dov. What is the most important function that delivers on that promise, that helps leaders find their purpose?
So that's the part that I'm confused about. So that's because I'm thinking about people listening. So what's the most important function? What do you mean by that? What
thing do you do impacts your customers most to achieve that goal of having purpose? For example, you do a podcast, actually a phenomenal podcast.
Thank you.
You do one-on-one coaching and consulting. You do group consulting.
Yeah.
You have, I believe, some online material too, right?
Online speaking conferences.
You're a public speaker.
Yeah.
So these are all functions that support it.
Right.
What we could do is we could write these down on sticky notes. So, and
Sure.
it's actually an exercise. We could write each function on a sticky note. So let's say there's 6 things.
Yeah.
All right. Of those 6 things, speaking, let's just start with 3 and make it super simple.
Sure.
Speaking, podcast, and coaching.
Sure.
If you had to get rid of one, if you could only do 2 functions, which one would you get rid of? Which 2 are more important than that one?
So now here's the interesting thing. So if we go profit first.
No, but yeah.
Profit first, then it's a different choice.
Good point. So this is not about profit first. This is about delivering your purpose. So of those 3 things, what most drives forward giving leaders purpose? How do you have the biggest?
I probably have to, if I was going to let one of the 3 go, I would probably have to let go the podcast because it fulfills my purpose, but not theirs.
Perfect. So
it
now
can fulfill theirs, but it's supplementary.
And so it's funny. I've walked now dozens and dozens of people through workshops through this process as we developed it, and it's painful to do this, right?
Oh yeah.
So the game is it's permanently off the table. But it also means if you never did a podcast again, you avail that time to focus on those 2 things and elevate them to become an even more impactful speaker, to provide even more impactful coaching. Now, and this is the toughest part, you have 2 things left. Your speaking, which you're phenomenal at, and your coaching, which you're phenomenal at. If you had to pick only one, which one would you keep? If you had to.
In the context of purpose, it would be probably the coaching, which is one-on-one and group. Right?
Okay.
It's with a company or with an individual. So yeah, that would be.
So that coaching. And then if you had between, Yeah. So it's coaching. If you had to pick between the group and one-on-one, which one most delivers on your brand promise of purposeful leadership?
At an individual level, it's the one-on-one. At a company level, it's the group. So I don't know the answer.
Okay. I would challenge you to really hone in on this based upon impact on your brand promise. Let's just say it's group coaching, just for ha-has.
Sure.
Okay. Then now we've identified the QBR. Now the QBR, by the way, is a declared function, meaning your company could declare as a group, and there could be another business out there that also is about purposeful leadership, and they say it's actually our podcast.
Absolutely.
Okay. Once you've identified it, here's the thing. We need to make sure that if you're serving that role as the queen bee, that we avail as much of your time to make that masterful, because the higher it gets elevated, the more world-renowned you'll be.
I see.
Then all the other work, we don't get rid of it, but we start to delegate it. And I talk about the process in Clockwork.
Sure.
Basically, we're defending you to be the queen bee, so you can do your primary function. The final stage is now we say, okay, now that this has become masterful, it's delivering on your world famous brand promise of purposeful leadership. How do we extract you? This is a part of separating the conjoined twin. How do we pull you out and put that in so other people or the resources can serve it?
So it becomes formulaic.
But everyone in the company needs to know that if we aren't world-class at our group coaching, if we're not focusing our attention there, we as an organization are suffering. The last little analogy to make this clear is our business, your business, I'd argue, is like a link chain. It's chains of different things that flow through the business. If we declare the group coaching as our differentiator, that link needs to be strengthened. If it's weak, you pull a chain, it'll snap there and the entire business collapses. But if you strengthen that chain, the entire chain will strengthen just by strengthening one of the weakest links or the most important links. Of course, over time, you need to strengthen other links too, but we need to always prioritize that core linchpin or keystone to the business, which is group coaching. That's the QBR.
That is so awesome. And I really appreciate you walking me through it, because I think it's really vital it takes it out of the conceptual for our viewers and our listeners, and they go, okay, because they're probably thinking of their own position as we walk through it. You know this because you do group training too, that you're working with somebody as a demo and the other person over there is going, okay, I get it. The mouth falls open.
Yeah. And so, as I went through my own exercise, I had the realization I got to write books, like really good books. And that means, what we're doing now is important, but it's not the most critical thing. If I do, a podcast or whatever, and it's compromising my ability to write extraordinary books, I am killing our own organization. And all my colleagues know that is they defend book writing time. December 7th till January 7th this year, I'm out of here just to write. And they're defending it. Yeah. So
that's very cool. We're getting close to our time, Mike, and this has been awesome. Let me ask you a couple of questions. Number one, what is it about yourself that you're still working on? Because I believe that great leadership is run by leaders who are committed to self-knowledge, self-growth, self-development, becoming better leaders. What are you still working on?
So much, but really purpose. I feel very called into a purpose, but I don't understand the amplification of it really through my organization. How can I align what I've defined as a purpose for my business and myself? How can I make sure it's in alignment with all my colleagues' individual life's purposes? I'm confused there. I'm struggling with that.
Well, I can certainly help you with that, because that is actually
that's your thing. Yeah.
That is exactly my specialty. Helping the individuals find their purpose and tie that purpose to the corporate purpose. Because you're right, it makes a phenomenal difference.
Yeah. I actually want to interview you.
What is your guilty pleasure?
My guilty pleasure is Twizzlers, which is a candy. And sadly, somewhere brought into the office today. The problem is I really struggle to stop myself from eating them. And I'll even eat them until I get sick. So
that's definitely a guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
How do I know when I've had enough? I vomit.
I vomit. Yeah, basically I vomit. Yeah. And then I say, look for there's 2 diamonds in there.
Exactly. And as a final here, what do you want our viewer, our listener to go away and take action on in the next 24 to 48 hours based on?
So I have an audacious suggestion. I suggest that every leader, every business owner listening declares a 4-week vacation. and maybe 18 months from now, maybe 2 years from now, but I want you on a 4-week vacation. What I found in my research is that almost every single business goes through a full cycle on monthly cycles, accounts receivable, collections, sales, new hires, fires, everything. If your role can be served, if your business can continue with your complete absence through a full cycle of 4 weeks, you've achieved independence. The thing is, we won't get there until we do it. So we need to declare it, commit to it, and then we start changing our mindset to actually make that a reality. So that's the big, bold, audacious request.
Fantastic. That is bold. That's amazing. Please tell our viewers, our listeners, where they can find out more about you and all the wonderful resources that you have.
Thanks. So thanks for offering, Dov. My name is Mike Michalowicz. You can go to MikeMotorbike.com because my last name is so hard to pronounce, let alone spell. So MikeMotorbike.com. That was my nickname in high school, which ironically, I never drove a motorcycle. But go to MikeMotorbike.com. You'll find me. And if you want to check out Clockwork, we set up a website called the Clockwork Life. So it's clockwork.life. You can get free chapters, but you can also get the Clockwork Kit for free on that website. It's the complimentary videos and so forth that your colleagues can absorb while you're reading the book to move your entire business forward.
Mate, it has been a true pleasure and honor having you here.
Thanks,
this
brother.
has been very practical. It's great. It's deep. It's insightful, but very practical that everybody can take something with. And I say this on every single show. Please, as a listener, as a viewer, do not just watch or listen. Play it back. I encourage you to play it back. Get out a pen and paper. Better the pen and paper than even typing. And take notes. Put it into action. Information is worth the hole in the donut. Transformation takes place through application. And you've got some amazing things to work with here. This has really been fabulous. Thank you so much, Mike. It's been an honor and a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you, brother.
This is really awesome. And for you, dear listener, I want to thank you for tuning in. And remember that you can chat about this show that you're listening to or about past episodes by going to our Facebook page and go to Dov Barron's Leadership and Loyalty Podcast on Facebook and leave us your comments, leave us your feedback. Tell us what you're going to do with it. And please reach out to Mike Motorcycle. Is that right?
Mike Motorbike. Mike Motorbike.
Mike Motorbike. Sorry. This was my son's nickname was Michael Motorcycle.
Oh, so there
Mike
you go.
Motorbike. MikeMotorbike.com. Go there and find out more about all the resources about Clockwork, etc. We will, of course, make sure that all of that is in the show notes. Remember, the research consistently shows that one of the biggest challenges facing even the most successful companies can be somewhat counterintuitive in that these fast-growing companies often hit a point where they realize that they're spending a fortune attracting, training, and developing top talent, only have them leave at just at an alarming rate. If you're sick of investing in your training and development of talent, only to have them leave you before you get your return on investment, then come talk to us at fullmontyleadership.com, where we provide you with the essential leadership skills to rekindle and amplify the hidden loyalty assets inside of your organization by tapping into purpose. fullmontyleadership.com, providing you with the concrete soft skills to get you and your organization to the top and keep you there. Why? Because you can't outsource authenticity. Also, remember to stop by the Matrix, matrix.fullmontyleadership.com. Matrix like the movie, you don't need a triple W. Matrix.fullmontyleadership.com and get your authentic leadership matrix self-assessment tool. It allows you to assess how your strengths are in the 5 areas of leadership and where you need to bring up your game. Remember, you can also find us on Google Play by simply saying, and Alexa, of course, by saying, play Dov Barron Podcast. I want to thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. Until next time, stay curious, my friend. Stay curious about how you need to step away a little bit, allow your business to become profit first and work like clockwork. I'm Dov Barron. I'm here to assist you tapping into your deep greatness to reach that next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, your life, and your leadership impact. And I am out.